This video is sponsored by Surfshark.
So you've got a new army and you want to get it painted fast. How do I do that? I hear you say. Well, I'm here to help out. That's what I do. So it could be that you've got a tournament coming up, you don't have much time in the evening, school, college, uni, work, children, or you just want to play a game against your mates at the weekend. Here, we're going to go through some principles, methods and techniques to help speed that along. What more could you ask for? So we've managed to scrape together the contents of the combat patrol for the World Eaters. So all we need to do is get those built, and then I need to plan how I'm going to paint them, which is going to be fun because there's lots of red and brass. Should be easy.
Is it just me, or does anyone else often think about what these guys will talk about?
What are you doing?
I'm installing Surfshark VPN on all my systems to keep me safe and flying through uncharted space.
Surfshark? That's not some kind of alien fish, is it?
No, it's a virtual private network that keeps me and my information safe online. If anyone is trying to snoop on our location and information, they're out of luck. It keeps me safe on risky public Wi-Fi networks by encrypting my data. I can even change my location to view content from other sectors of space and install it on unlimited devices.
So it's not a bunch of surfing alien sharks? Explain.
We travel a lot, and when I'm not fighting to protect humanity, I like to enjoy my downtime watching romantic comedies and TV shows. You can clearly see we're in space at the moment, but loads of my favorite shows are in the USA sector. Just one click and I've unlocked a wealth of entertainment, and I can now enjoy anywhere.
That sounds expensive and risky.
Nonsense! Clicking on the link in the description and using the promotional code Peachy will get you 83% off and 3 months extra free. Surfshark even offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so trying Surfshark is risk-free.
Security alert! Security alert!
I think you mean Surfshark Alert, the add-on that monitors your personal data and gives you real-time breach alerts. Good, right?
I'm safe thanks to Surfshark, and you can be too. Just click the link in the description to try it out. Blood! Oh no! Chaos, chaos!
We've got everything built. Pat's helped build most of it as well, so that's really good. So I definitely think I'm going to go undercoat grey with these guys. I'm thinking gold for these. I'm thinking blacks and reds. We'll come to that in a bit. But one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it all to start off with, because I might not like that undercoat. And if I sprayed everything gold, then I've got to spray it all red after or whatever. So I'm going to do one, spray him gold, try my colour scheme on this guy. That's the 20 Berserkers done. I'm thinking gold's going to be perfect. And then grey seems right for those. And then this guy, I'm thinking of going down the route of spraying it black, maybe, while it's still wet, dusting it with red, so it kind of makes it dark black, and then when that's fully dry, just give it a bit more of a dust at the top. But we'll see about that. But yeah, see how we get on.
My test model, I've decided, is going to be a Khorne Berserker, so nice and straightforward, and I've decided I'm going to be using AK Golden Armour Spray as my undercoat, and that's a good starting point. And then I'm just going to go to town, going through my normal process of painting models and see how I get on.
So I'm just about finished with my test model here, and what I'm doing is just applying a little bit of wash to my silver details just to finish off, so it's the last little thing I wanted to get done. I'm happy with the gold spray. I think that's the perfect undercoat for doing this. Red would have just been a lot of work. What I have discovered is I initially washed the whole thing with Reikland Flesh Shade, then dry brushed up with silver, which is what I naturally do for all the trim. But that being said, after that I then apply red. I'm thinking applying red before I wash with Reikland Flesh Shade. And the reason for doing that is when I did a little test on one of my legs, it didn't make that much of a difference. So actually, from a tidying up point of view, if you get like red on the gold, you don't have to worry about like reshading it and whatever. So what I'm going to do if I'm doing this is, yeah, I'm going to dry brush silver over the gold, pick out all the red bits, then wash the whole lot with Reikland, and I think that will speed up a lot of the process as well. But I'm pretty chuffed. It didn't take me that long for the test. Always put more effort into the test, to be fair, because you're just exploring the model. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Are you happy? You are? Oh, that's good. He's happy too.
Starting from a golden undercoat, normally at this point I'd wash the entire model with a shade that's relevant, but as we discussed earlier, I'm going to dry brush with silver, and the silver I'm going to be using is Stormhost silver. I'm going to lightly dry brush that up, and that's just going to pick out all those raised areas on that trim for me.
For that red armour, I'm now going to apply some Flesh Tearers Red. Now I'm going to apply this all over those armour details. I'm probably going to get some on the trim, not so bothered because I can just use AK Gold again just to tidy back up. So don't be so worried about that. Yes, there might be a bit where it might like look slightly discoloured, but once we've shaded it, you're not going to see it.
Oh, so I'm about done with the red. Just got 2 shoulder pads left to do on this guy. Honestly, I was being super precious at the start, trying to avoid as much gold as possible, but actually I can tidy that up with gold before the next step, which is to coat the whole lot in Reikland Flesh Shade, which is going to hide a multitude of sins anyway, where I've been like really fiddly going around the back here going, oh, I can see a bit of gold. Actually, once the shade's on, it's going to get rid of it. So finish these shoulder pads, tidy up a bit of gold, Reikland Flesh Shade the lot. Oh, and then have a biscuit, or 5, maybe 5. Yeah.
After my 5 biscuits, which were very tasty, what I'm going to do now is get some AK Gold and just tidy up that trim where needed. It's only little dots here and there, it's not too much. I might get another 5 biscuits after this. Now that we've tied up any gold, I'm just going to get Reikland Flesh Shade and I'm literally going to drench the model. And yes, I'm going to be a bit like mindful here and there and do some watch, just in case it droops or dribbles or pulls in the wrong kind of places. But really, just coat it over, big brush, start from the top, work your way down, let gravity do all the work for you. And honestly, once it's dry, it'll look mega. You would not be that upset by your end result of your Wild Eaters. They're going to look great. Next up is some Black Legion. Again, my favourite black of all blacks. This is mainly for the leather, the undersuit, the weapons, but I'm going to thin it down slightly just so it flows a bit better, but you can always do 2 coats for things like the leather or the gun casings if you want to. So like I said, we're just going to thin it down and it's just going to run to those cracks a lot easier, so there's less work for you to do. It's a lazy painter's way. But as Pat correctly pointed out, it's also fast. As I have no oily steel, I'm going to use some Iron Hand steel, still a good paint, and I'm going to neatly pick out some of those silver details that are closer to the body, but things like the weapons that are sticking out a bit more, I'm just going to overbrush with a really old brush. I've got an old layer brush here, so I'm just going to like kind of in between dry brushing and like wet brushing, it's just picking out all those silver details, because again, they're going to get washed as well, so anything in the cracks will just get hidden by wash. For any skin and skull details, we're going to get some Rakkar flesh. A couple of coats will be needed here, mainly the skin I reckon, but the skulls you can just coat them over a couple of times, but not over the whole thing, just around the cranium for the second coat maybe. And then for that flesh, we're going to coat over with Reikland Flesh Shade. Now, in hindsight, what I could have done was picked out the flesh before shading the whole model, but you know what, I didn't think about that until now, because I forgot they had flesh bits on them. So if you want to do that at home. Do all your flesh before you shade everything with Reikland Flesh Shade. And to make the skulls pop out a little bit more from the rest of the model, I'm going to get some skeleton horde and apply that over. Again, from a distance, if you squint your eyes, it might look a little bit like the gold, so you've got to make them pop out later on with some highlights, but at the moment it looks fine. Just wipe it with your finger, that'll give you some highlights. Now for the glowies. So we're going to start off with white. I'm going to be using Pro Acryl white here. Any white will do. Just going to pick out those eyes. I'm not going to be neat here. I'm actually just going to let it flood around the eye sockets itself, because that'll add to the glowy effect. And of course, don't forget to pick out any plasma weaponry you've got as well. You might want to do a second coat on the guns, just so it gives it a nice opaque finish. And then lastly, for this first section of our Wild Eaters, is just to coat over those glowers with a striking Scorpion Green. And instantly you get a powerful glow and it looks great. Do that on the plasma guns, but on the actual Wild Eater symbol, as opposed to doing things like Nylok Oxide, which I've seen other people doing, I'm just going to use that striking Scorpion Green and then just add that, and it kind of just helps tie the colours across the model a bit nicer as well. Now, if you want to give your Wild Eaters or your Khorne Berserkers a little bit more punch, what I'm going to do is just pick out some little details here and there, just to help the model stand out a bit more. So for the leather, so they don't look so dull, I'm just going to get AK Granite and just pick out some of those raised areas. Again, be mindful, and if you find that some of your highlights are a bit chunky, just get some Black Legion, make them a bit thinner again. And then for the skin of the skulls, I am just going to use Rakkar flesh and tighten up those raised areas. Some places layer it, some places edge highlight it. For the skin, it's mostly layered. For the skulls, I'm mostly just picking out things like the eye sockets, around the nose, the teeth. And then again, just make those skulls pop out a bit more. So our Khorne Berserkers, Khorne Bazraks, whatever you want to call them, are done. As an end result, they look great. They took an age, if I'm honest. I had a moment, a wobble, if you like, where I was like,
hang on, this is taking longer than I thought. This is taking much longer than I anticipated. And I've got 20 of them, and it felt like 40 days had gone by, but it was actually only like a day and a half. All said and done, once they're all finished, I was actually quite proud of them. I think they look quite good. And they're like any Chaos guys with lots of trim, lots of armour. Sometimes you just got to sit down and work through it. It takes ages, and you just got to work through it. Watch a film, treat yourself to 20 marshmallows, I don't know. Just find a way to get through it. We did. We got through it. You too can get through it. Trust me, it's fine. They look great though. With the saga of the corny Bazraks now done, we're going to move on to the Jackals. Now, initially, I was petrified about doing the Jackals because they've got so much detail on them. I mean, tons. And then I thought, you know what? Use my tried and tested colour scheme of my Blood Pact and transfer that. And my test model took me about 30 minutes. And I had a huge morale boost. And I was like, yeah, these aren't going to be that bad to do. Granted, they're not going to be the prettiest things in the world because I'm not going to sit there tediously highlighting everything. But from a speed point of view, they're going to be quick, efficient, and they're going to look pretty cool as well. So let's crack on and get some Jackals done. Ow. That's the noise Jackals do when they do their war cry. So moving on to my tried and tested technique for painting these Jackals. I'm going to start from a grey undercoat. Here I'm using Mechanica Standard Grey, and I'm going to heavily dry brush over with Rakkar Flesh. Two reasons for doing this. One, it kind of gets all the flesh pretty much base coated, but also pre-highlights those areas like the leather and the cloth as well. So when you start applying those contrasts, you'll get yourself a bit of an extra highlight there. That dry brush done, what I'm going to do here is get some Flesh Tearers red, slightly thin it down, not too much, probably like 2 parts Flesh Tearers to 1 part water, and I'm going to coat that all over the cloth. In some places, you've got trousers, you've got t-shirts, you've got like loincloths, just pick and choose how you want. I mean, I'm mostly doing it red, to be fair, apart from the odd shirt, which will be black. Now that we've done the red, I'm going to get some Black Legion. Again, I'm going to thin this down slightly to the same consistency that we did Flesh Tearers red. And for this is going to be used for the leather, the weapon casings. In fact, anything that's probably going to be like silver or metallics, I'm actually going to base coat that as well with Black Legion. It's a great colour. It's also going to punch out some of those highlights as well when it starts to dry, hence why I've thinned it down a bit. But just take your time, work your way around. And again, if you're making mistakes, coat back over a little bit of Flesh Tearers or a bit of Rakkar Flesh, depending on what you got it on. Now, all the silver details, I'm going to pick those out with Iron Hand Steel. Just work your way around, teeth blades, belt buckles, grenades, you name it, just pick them out. And then all the armour we'll move on to in a minute and do those gold. Speaking of the armour, we're using AK gold here. I'm just picking that out, a couple of coats. I'm also going to pick out those canisters as well. Now I've pretty much most of the model blocked out. I'm going to get Reikland Flesh Shade, big brush, slap all over. Yep, that's what we're doing. We're slapping it all over and we're drowning the model. And I tell you what, when all's said and done, once it's all dry and hopefully not pulled in horrible places, be mindful of that please, it's going to look great. Now here I'm going to apply some Skeleton Horde to the skulls. In some places I've actually got a bit of Reikland Flesh Shade on there, but you know what, I don't actually care because it looks fine. It just adds an extra bit of depth to the model. So get some Skeleton Horde, apply that over the skulls, and that'll make them stand out a little bit more from the flesh as well. And for all the glowy bits, we're now going to pick those out with white. Here I'm using Pro Acryl Bolt Titanium again, and then just picking out all those pipes, a couple of coats, but actually because it's Pro Acryl you probably only need one to be fair. And once all the white's picked out, we're going to get Striking Scorpion Green. I'm going to apply that to all the pipes and tubes. Now, I know what you're going to be saying here, but it's blood. It's meant to be like, you know, blood that's pumping through them. Just green works well because I've got it on my World Eaters. And you know what? As a spot colour, it's fine. It could be Orc blood. It could just be Combat Drugs. It doesn't really matter. It's just a nice spot colour. And I'm also going to use it, like I've done on the World Eaters symbol, on those back canisters as well.
Right, Jackals are done. So what's left is the Lord on RoboPig. So other than the initial undercoats of spray it black whilst it's wet, spray it red, and then a bit more of a dust and a red here, I think most of it's going to be similar colours to the corny Bazraks, just in slightly different order. So obviously we're not doing silver, gold, getting golds and silvers mixed up here. There's too much of it. Yeah, I'm not starting off with a gold undercoat. I'm starting off with a red undercoat, but that's fine. There's just a bit of trim here and there, a bit of silver, and then it's just like blacking some stuff out. But I think it'll come across quite easy to do, actually, looking at it. There's not loads. I say that. I'm just looking at the back. There's like a skull backpack. Oh, Pat, we might be here for a lot longer. No, it's fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Just get some glowies in there somewhere. And then yeah, I'm going to tie them all together with a bit of the same basing, so a bit of a sandy base. I think I'm going to go with like sand or desert, and then some blood splatters on the weapons. That's about it. With our Lord on Juggernaut now undercoated, our first step's going to be picking out all that gold trim and any other gold details. And for that, I'm going to be using AK Gold again. And I'm just going to take my time, work my way around. I'm going to start on the Juggernaut first, or Robo Pig, and then just move across the model and just find bits and then go, oh, missed a bit, and pick some more bits and do a second coat and go, oh, missed another bit. That's normal. Just work your way through it and yeah, make yourself 40 cups of tea. With all our gold picked out, what I'm now going to get is some iron hand steel. And first of all, I'm just going to pick out some of those details with iron hand steel. So nicely, neatly pick out belt buckles, bits on the weapons, etc. Stuff around like the teeth on the actual Juggernaut itself. So just a few little bits and bobs here. And then for the underbelly, I'm going to get an old brush and just roughly dry brush any of those little working parts. So it kind of looks like demonic forged sort of like endoskeleton, so I'm not going to be too precious about it. Just a little bit of a dry brush here and there, and that'll just look like it's just a bit chipped up and battered. Especially when it's washed, it'll look even better. Now I'm going to get Rackar flesh and pick out the skin. I'm also going to pick out the skulls. His backpack, I'm going to start picking out the two skulls on the end, but then I'm going to get a rough dry brush, or a small old batter brush in this case, and then just dry brush slightly on that backpack to make it look like, I guess, demonic armour. It's kind of like merging from skin to red. Looks a bit rough at this point, but once it's washed, it'll be fine. Now I'm going to get Black Legion and pick out the leather and the undersuit. I then realised his torso was meant to be flesh, and I decided I'm going to paint that black because, you know what, we're on the clock. I want to get it done. I don't want to keep going back, picking out bits of flesh here and there. And if you're doing this for yourself at home, you've only got a few hours, you can make these artistic choices, which is what I'm doing. It's an artistic choice. With most of our colours now blocked out, I'm going to get a bit of a battered big brush, Riken flesh shade, and from the top, work our way down, coat the model, flood it. Yes, that's it. We're just going to wash all over. Be mindful not for it to like pull too much in those areas where there's banding and stuff. Just work your way around, keep checking, dry off your brush, soak up any excess, and just keep doing that. And with all that Riken flesh shade dry, I'm just going to get some skeleton horde and just pick out those skulls a bit more, just add a bit more punch to them. Again, wasn't too neat here. And then for those glowies, mainly the eyes with this guy, is just picking out with a bit of white. Again, I'm just using Pro Acryl. I'm going to coat over those with striking scorpion green. Now, to make our Lord on Juggernaut stand out a little bit more from the crowd, we're going to highlight him up. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here is get some Rackar flesh and just punch out that skin a little bit more. So just a little layer. Again, layer in some places, edge highlight around like his elbows. And I'm going to do the same on the skulls as well, just around those eye sockets and noses and teeth and craniums. Again, the usual, just pick them out. A little bit on the actual backpack that could do with a bit more love as well. Some rivets too. Now I'm going to get some German grey from AK. I'm just going to highlight the leather details. Things like the banding and some other areas I might just like layer over the top in preparation for doing like a thin down wash after of black, just to knock it back a tad. Speaking of which, using some Black Legion. Here I'm going to use this for some silver details just to wash it again, thinning it down to a wash consistency, so like 4 brushes of water to 1 brush of black. And then I'm also going to apply that to some of those half details, like the little leather bandings that go on them, and that will just knock those grey highlights back a little bit too. Now we're going to move into one of the longest highlight stages here, and that is to highlight the gold. You don't have to, you know what? You don't have to, you can just leave it as it is, but I wanted to make him punch out a bit more. So I'm going to get some Stormhost silver and then just pick out some of those edges here and there. Some places I'll layer it, like the 8-pointed star and his helm. Other places, I'm just going to just pick out some edges and rivets. In some places it looks quite garish, some of the highlights. I hate highlighting gold, if I'm honest. It's just, sometimes it can just look too garish. So my way of dealing with that is to get some of that Riken flesh shade, thin it down ever so slightly, and then just drop it over some of those highlights, and also some areas that need a bit more depth, so like around the flanks of the actual Juggernaut, and also bits on his horns. I can just drop a bit more in there, so it adds a bit more depth to it as well. And the last highlight we're going to apply to this guy, just to make him pop out a lot more, is to get some AK Deep Red. Again, any red will do. Evil Sun Scarlet, Mephiston Red, doesn't really matter. It just needs to be a nice scarlet kind of red, to be fair. I'm going to start highlighting the armour up. Now, on the actual rider himself, the Lord, I'm just going to pick out some edges here. I'm not going to do like a nice fine edge highlight. I'm just going to do some little scuffs here and there, so it looks a bit battered and old. And those bits where the banding is in the armour, just a little bit, just here and there, and then just dry off your brush and just rub it down a tad, and that'll kind of blend it in a bit. It looks quite nice, just looks very chaosy. Adds a bit more punch as well to that red.
And then for the actual steed itself, because it's a slightly darker red as well, I'm just going to use the same colour, highlight up the same, and again doing some scuffs. Still kind of looks different, but it's the same highlight. So a little sort of top tip, just use the same colour across two different tones, and it can still look very different. With that Lord on Juggernaut now done, we're going to base the living daylights out of this army. Now I'm going to use AK dry ground for this, pretty much straight from the pot. So I'm going to apply that all over. It looks great. In fact, it kind of looks like a desert, or if you really want, ground down skulls. Let's go with that. Ground down skulls. That's what they're walking on, because they're world eaters. That's what they do. So I'm going to coat that over. In some places, I'm going to thin it down quite a lot around the feet. And the great thing with AK is it still has a lot of pigment to it, but it means I'm not in danger of getting loads on their actual feet. I can just let it swamp around the feet and then just add some thicker stuff after. Now, you've got rocks on these, tactical rocks, there's quite a few, and the Lord has quite a big one. You could spend ages painting loads of different colours to make it look like alien rock. You could even paint it grey and wash it. Or you could do what I'm doing here, is thin down the dry ground quite heavily and apply it over. And it looks like rock. And it's really easy, really simple. And if you're on a budget of time like I am, it's perfect. To really finish off those bases and make them look complete, I'm now going to rim them. And as always, my rim colour of choice is Steel Legion Drab. A couple of coats here. Some places you might need 3. So just take your time, work your way around. Base is done. No World Eaters collection would look right without gore-covered axes and blades. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to use Flesh Tearer's Red here and mix with a little bit of hard coat, because Flesh Tearer's Red has been used quite a lot in this video. It is pretty much blood for the blood god, so if you got that, just use blood for the blood god. I'm going to apply it, not like with a brush or anything like that. Get some sponge, any kind of sponge will do. We've just used like the stuff from the actual figure cases and then dab that on, and it just looks like blood splatter from where they've been hacking away at stuff. So yeah, it makes your bloody effects look more bloody. Tasty. There we are, we painted an army fast. A World Eaters army nonetheless, lots of chaos guys. Fast, that's the important part. And you know what the biggest learning here that not only that I benefit from but you guys will benefit from is test model. Always do a test model, because that will inform the undercoat you use, what order you apply the paints, where you could like minimize effort by using a wash to do a lot of the hard work. So yeah, test model is key when it comes to painting any armors, especially when you want to do it fast, and also use undercoats to speed that along as well, like we did in this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. It's quite gory. Don't forget to check out the links, hit the like and subscribe, and also check out our Patreon as well. Have a gore-filled time painting your World Eaters or whatever it is you're going to paint. Hope you have fun, because I'm going to just, I don't know what to say. Hate saying goodbyes, Pat. Hate saying goodbyes. Don't like doing it. Bye.
That was great.